All right, the Heady Perspective. We're here at Chief Big Cloud Glass Studios. Mikey, Thatcher. What are we about to do today?
We're gonna make a coil pipe today, all right? So you're gonna get to see me make a rod of glass into a solid pipe that you can smoke out of, okay? And
Okay.
so you'll see it's like making a coil pinch pot out of clay, right? Except for we're gonna use glass and we're gonna be in the flame almost the whole time. So, and I'll explain it as I go.
Cool. Anxious to see the process, bro.
Yeah, I'll get started, right? So what I'm gonna do right here is I'm gonna pull a large section of this thicker rod off. And I'm going to use that as my point to make this piece. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to melt this handle to the bottom of this. I'm going to have something nice and cool to hold on to. And I'm going to pull off probably about, say, 7 or 8 inches. I think this rod is only about 12 millimeter or something. You could use thicker if you wanted to. So here we go. Now you'll see my glass is now malleable enough for me to bend and pull my point off. I'm going to marver both these to be a point. That way I can always pony up another rod and pull another point here in a little bit. And so this I'll stick in the kiln, which we already have a couple in here that are nice and hot. And so I'll pull a hot one out and we'll use it. Okay. So now this is just a good solid green. I think I'll go with black. So we'll use black for this. So what I'm going to do here is I got to heat both these at the same time. And I got to get this black a little bit malleable, but I want to keep my clear nice and hot. And I'm going to make a straight strip down each side, heating my color and at the same time heating that clear. So now we'll do it again on the other side. Now I'll make one more strip. And so now this is 9.5 millimeter tubing, right? So we used to use this for long stems back in the day. I'm going to adjust my flame a little bit here. And I might even clean a little bit off the tip of this. Okay, now I'm going to heat the tip of this tube just ever so slightly. And that way this glass will stick to this. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build outward until I get my desired width of tubing that I'm going to want. And then I'm going to build upward. And as you can see, it's like making a coil pot out of clay, except we're making out of glass in the flame. So now I'm going to adjust my elbow and build upward. These do take a little bit of time, but when you get good at them, they're really fun. And as you can see, I'm just going to keep continuing to build this coil pot. And I'm going to try to use up as much of this as I can. So we're actually trying to make a pipe. And so the tricky part to this is you have to spin one hand one way, and then the other hand has to spin the opposite way. And so now we're kind of getting close to the end here. I'll clean this up. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up to keep it nice and hot. Because here in a second we're going to use some silver, fume the inside so it changes color. Here's my silver. Okay. Now that we've fumed the inside of that, now this piece should change color as people smoke out of it, whomever gets it. Now we're going to strike that fume a little bit. And so now what I'm going to do, now I'm going to heat this up, and I'm going to marver the front of this coil pot shut. And what that's doing is melting in a lot of these coils, and it's going to make it so I'll be able to shape this piece into a pipe. And so I don't want to marver it too hard because I don't want my pattern work to get twisted or smear or anything like that. So when I marver pretty gently. And that's why you see me go back into the flame so many times. As you can see, we are almost closed. And so now what I'm going to do to finish closing it up is now I'm going to take a little rod of clear and I'm going to basically heat this up in the flame and pull a little bit out, and now it's closed, which now is going to allow me to actually blow into the piece and use it like it was a normal tube. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up this front half. I'm going to puff it out to be somewhat like a globe, and I'm going to punny to the front of it so I can melt in the back half. And you see I like to get it nice and soupy. Make sure all that glass is melted in. So now I'm going to punny to the front of this. And I want to try to punny directly in the center. And so I have a better spin, a nice flat axle. And now I'm going to melt in the half that's going to end up being the mouthpiece side. You guys got to remember, you always got to melt in everything. If you don't melt in everything, something's going to crack. And that's basically what we're trying to avoid by keeping this piece in the flame the entire time. So now I'm going to puff it out. Get like the little peanut shape. Now I'm going to adjust my flame a little bit. And we're going to go directly and hit it right in the center. And we're going to give it a good reduction. So we're going to sit here and focus on the center for a while and melt in everything right here. And after I've reduced this for a while, I'll pull it out of the flame and give it a nice pull. And after I give it that pull, you'll see the shape of the pipe start to come out. I like to reduce mine a lot. Wow. So now that this piece is probably hard enough, now I'm going to snap off my punny off the front. Oh, there we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat the front of this back up. And I'm going to puff it out a little bit. And that way the bowl has a little bit better shape to it. Melt away that punny mark at the same time. Now I'm going to pull it out. We're going to puff it out a little bit. I might even give it a little bit better reduction even. Do it one more time. Okay, so now my next step is to find my straightest point. Make sure that piece is nice and straight. You don't want your bowl off to one side. And so I would assume right here looks pretty good. Now I'm going to adjust my flame. I'm going to heat it just below the equator. I'm going to pop a hole right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat around that hole. And we're going to push that in to be our bowl. Thank you. We'll give it a little puff so that hole doesn't close. You see how I'm making circles around it, not hitting the hole directly. So now I'm going to grab my bowl push, heat around it so the heat rises to this side of it now. Another little puff, and now we're going to push our bowl. And now we have a bowl. So now what I'll do is I'll shine the inside of that bowl. It's going to make sure there's no stress. Want to make sure that hole is not off to one side. I also want to make sure that hole is nice and round. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to heat up the very back of this right here, and that way when you set your pipe down it doesn't roll away. And when you flatten that, you're going to go mouthpiece first, flatten the back just ever so slightly. You see now it's flat. Now I'll shine any tool mark out that there was. Adjust my flame. And now what I'll do is I'll plug the bowl hole and I'll pop us a carb. Okay. And now what we'll do is we'll stick this in the kiln for a little bit and get it hot before we pull that mouthpiece off. So, other than that, that's a coil pipe. Okay guys, now this should be hot enough that we should be able to pull off this handle off this mouthpiece. You see we have a beautiful coil spoon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out a pair of claws here. I'm going to grab the front of that with a pair of claws, that way I'm not burning myself. And now we're going to hit it with the flame right in here. We're going to pull this off. Okay guys, here we go. So now what I'm doing here is I'm going to melt off this blow tube. Set that aside and I'll grab a little piece of rod. I'm going to pull some of this off to clean it up. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off that little piece of tube off the bottom there. And Tamp it. Now we're going to shine this with a flame and reamer it to be round. Okay, guys, that's a pipe.